the power of doing this. And he made a check mark. He said, in the workplace, adults love it. With kids, it's heaven. The week we introduced a morning checklist into our house, it cut parental screaming in half. But the real change didn't come till we had these family meetings. So following the Agile model, we asked 3 questions. What worked well in our family this week? What didn't work well? And what will we agree to work on in the week ahead? Everyone throws out suggestions, and then we pick 2 to focus on. And suddenly the most amazing things started coming out of our daughters' mouths. What worked well this week? Getting over our fear of riding bikes, making our beds. What didn't work well? Our math sheets, or greeting visitors at the door. Like a lot of parents, our kids are something like Bermuda Triangles, like thoughts and ideas go in, but none ever comes out. I mean, at least not that are revealing. This gave us access suddenly to their innermost thoughts. But the most surprising part was when we turned to what are we going to work on the week ahead. You know, the key idea of Agile is that teams essentially manage themselves, and it works in software, and it turns out that it works with kids. Our kids love this process. So they would come up with all these ideas. You know, greet 5 visitors at the door this week, get an extra 10 minutes of reading before bed. Kick someone, lose desserts for a month. It turns out, by the way, our girls are little Stalins. We constantly have to kind of dial them back. Now look, naturally there's a gap between their kind of conduct in these meetings and their behavior the rest of the week. But the truth is it didn't really bother us. It felt like we were kind of laying these underground ground cables that wouldn't light up their world for many years to come. 3 years later, our girls are almost 8 now, we're still holding these meetings. My wife counts them among her most treasured moments as a mom. So what did we learn? The word Agile entered the lexicon in 2001 when Jeff Sutherland, a group of designers, met in Utah and wrote a 12-point Agile manifesto. I think the time is right for an Agile family manifesto. I've taken some ideas from the stars and from many other families I met. I'm proposing 3 planks. Plank number 1, adapt all the time. When I became a parent, I figured, you know what, we'll set a few rules and we'll stick to them. That assumes, as parents, we can anticipate every problem that's going to arise. We can't. What's great about the Agile system is you build in a system of change so that you can react to what's happening to you in real time. It's like they say in the internet world. If you're doing the same thing today you were doing 6 months ago, you're doing the wrong thing. Parents can learn a lot from that. But to me, adapt all the time means something deeper too. We have to break parents out of this straitjacket that the only ideas we can try at home are ones that come from shrinks or self-help gurus or other family experts. The truth is, their ideas are stale. Whereas in all these other worlds, there are these new ideas to make groups and teams work effectively. Let's just take a few examples. Let's take the biggest issue of all, family dinner. Everybody knows that having family dinner with your children is good for the kids. But for so many of us, it doesn't work in our lives. I met a celebrity chef in New Orleans who said, no problem, I'll just time shift family dinner. I'm not home, can't make family dinner, we'll have family breakfast. We'll meet for a bedtime snack. We'll make Sunday meals more important. And the truth is, recent research backs him up. It turns out there's only 10 minutes of productive time in any family meal. The rest of it's taken up with take your elbows off the table and pass the ketchup. You can take that 10 minutes and move it to any part of the day and have the same benefit. So time shift family dinner, that's adaptability. An environmental psychologist told me if you're sitting in a hard chair on a rigid surface, you'll be more rigid. If you're sitting on a cushioned chair, you'll be more open. She told me when you're disciplining your children, sit in an upright chair with a cushioned surface, the conversation will go better. My wife and I actually moved where we sit for difficult conversations because I was sitting above in the power position. So move where you sit. That's adaptability. The point is there are all these new ideas out there. We've got to hook them up with parents. So plank number 1, adapt all the time. Be flexible, be open-minded, let the best ideas win. Plank number 2, empower your children. Our instinct as parents is to order our kids around. It's easier, and frankly, we're usually right. There's a reason that few systems have been more waterfall over time than the family. But the single biggest lesson we learned is to reverse the waterfall as much as possible. Enlist the children in their own upbringing. Just yesterday, we were having our family meeting, and we had voted to work on overreacting. So we said, okay, give us a reward and give us a punishment, okay? So one of my daughters threw out, you get 5 minutes of overreacting time all week. So we kind of liked that. But then her sister started working the system. She said, do I get 1 5-minute overreaction, or can I get 10 30-second overreactions? I love that. Spend the time however you want. Now give us a punishment. Okay, if we get 15 minutes of overreaction time, that's the limit. Every minute above that, we have to do 1 push-up. So you see, this is working. Now look, this system isn't lax. There's plenty of parental authority going on, but we're giving them practice becoming independent, which, of course, is our ultimate goal. I mean, just as I was leaving to come here tonight, one of my daughters started screaming. The other one said, overreaction, overreaction, and started counting. And within 10 seconds, it had ended. To me, that is a certified Agile miracle. So the point is, and by the way, research backs this up too. Children who plan their own goals, set weekly schedules, evaluate their own work, build up their frontal cortex, and take more control over their lives. The point is, we have to let our children succeed on their own terms, and yes, on occasion, fail on their own terms. I was talking to Warren Buffett's banker, and he was chiding me for not letting my children make mistakes with their allowance. And I said, but what if they drive into a ditch? He said, it's much better to drive into a ditch with a $6 allowance than a $60,000 a year salary or a $6 million inheritance. So the bottom line is, empower your children. Plank number 3, tell your story. Adaptability is fine, but we also need bedrock. Jim Collins, the author of Good to Great, told me that successful human organizations of any kind have 2 things in common. They preserve the core, they stimulate progress. So Agile is great for stimulating progress, but I kept hearing time and again, you need to preserve the core. So how do you do that? Collins coached us on doing something that businesses do, which is define your mission and identify your core values. So he led us through the process of creating a family mission statement. We did the family equivalent of a corporate retreat. We had a pajama party. I made popcorn. Actually, I burned 1, so I made 2. My wife brought a flip chart, and we had this great conversation, like, what's important to us? What values do we most uphold? And we ended up with 10 statements. We are travelers, not tourists. We don't like dilemmas. We like solutions. Again, research shows that parents should spend less time worrying about what they do wrong and more time focusing on what they do right. Worry less about the bad times and build up the good times. This family mission statement is a great way to identify what it is that you do right. A few weeks later, we got a call from the school. One of our daughters had gotten into a spat. And suddenly we were worried, like, do we have a mean girl on our hands? And we didn't really know what to do, so we called her into my office. The family mission statement was on the wall, and my wife said, so, anything up there seem to apply? And she kind of looked down the list, and she said, bring people together? Suddenly, we had a way into the conversation. Another great way to tell your story is to tell your children where they came from. Researchers at Emory gave children a simple what do you know test. Do you know where your grandparents were born? Do you know where your parents went to high school? Do you know anybody in your family who had a difficult situation, an illness, and they overcame it? The children who scored highest on this do you know scale had the highest self-esteem and a greater sense they could control their lives. The Do You Know test was the single biggest predictor of emotional health and happiness. As the author of the study told me, children who have a sense of they're part of a larger narrative have greater self-confidence. So my final plank is tell your story. Spend time retelling the story of your family's positive moments and how you overcame the negative ones. If you give children this happy narrative, you give them the tools to make themselves happy. I was a teenager when I first read Anna Karenina, and its famous opening sentence, all happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. When I first read that, I thought, that sentence is inane. Of course all happy families aren't alike. But as I began working on this project, I began changing my mind. Recent scholarship has allowed us, for the first time, to identify the building blocks that successful families have. I've mentioned just 3 here today. Adapt all the time, empower the children, tell your story. Is it possible all these years later to say Tolstoy was right? The answer, I believe, is yes. When Leo Tolstoy was 5 years old, his brother Nikolai came to him and said he had engraved the secret to universal happiness on a little green stick, which he had hidden in a ravine on the family's estate in Russia. If the stick were ever found, all humankind would be happy. Tolstoy became consumed with that stick, but he never found it. In fact, he asked to be buried in that ravine where he thought it was hidden. He still lies there today, covered in a layer of green grass. That story perfectly captures for me the final lesson that I learned. Happiness is not something we find. It's something we make. Almost anybody who's looked at well-run organizations has come to pretty much the same conclusion. Greatness is not a matter of circumstance. It's a matter of choice. You don't need some grand plan. You don't need a waterfall. You just need to take small steps, accumulate small wins. Keep reaching for that green stick. In the end, this may be the greatest lesson of all. What's the secret to a happy family? Try.
Welcome to 5 Dangerous Things You Should Let Your Children Do. I don't have children, I borrow my friends' children, so take all this advice with a grain of salt. I'm Gavin Tully. I'm a contract computer scientist by trade, but I'm the founder of something called the Tinkering School. It's a summer program which aims to help kids learn how to build the things that they think of. So we build a lot of things, and I do put power tools into the hands of 2nd graders. So if you're thinking about sending your kid to Tinkering School, they do come back bruised, scraped, and bloody. So, you know, we live in a world that's subjected to ever more stringent child safety regulations. There doesn't seem to be any limit on how crazy child safety regulations can get. We put suffocation warnings on every piece of plastic film manufactured in the United States or for sale with an item in the United States. We put warnings on coffee cups to tell us that the contents may be hot. And we seem to think that any item sharper than a golf ball is too sharp for children under the age of 10. So where does this trend stop? When we round every corner and eliminate every sharp object, every pokey bit in the world, then the first time that kids come in contact with anything sharp or not made out of round plastic, they'll hurt themselves with it. So as the boundaries of what we determine as the safety zone grow ever smaller, we cut off our children from valuable opportunities to learn how to interact with the world around them. And despite all of our best efforts and intentions, kids are always going to figure out how to do the most dangerous thing they can in whatever environment they can. So, despite the provocative title, this presentation is really about safety and about how some simple things that we can do to raise our kids to be creative, confident, and in control of the environment around them. And what I now present to you is an excerpt from a book in progress. The book is called 50 Dangerous Things. This is 5 dangerous things. Thing number 1, play with fire. Learning to control one of the most elemental forces in nature is a pivotal moment in any child's personal history. Whether we remember it or not, it's the first time we really get control of one of these mysterious things. These mysteries are only revealed to those who get the opportunity to play with it. So playing with fire, this is like one of the great things we ever discovered, fire. From playing with it, they learn some basic principles about fire, about intake, about combustion, about exhaust. These are the three working elements of fire that you have to have a good controlled fire. And you can think of the open pit fire as a laboratory. You don't know what they're going to learn from playing with it. Let them fool around with it on their own terms, and trust me, they're going to